What happens when a symbol of calm strength suddenly loses her composure on live television? When Wonder Woman herself, Gal Gadot, stands face to face with the view's most unapologetic voice, Joy Behar, and something inside her finally breaks. It began like any other morning on The View. The studio lights shimmered, bouncing off Gal's silver blouse. There was a buzz in the air, that familiar cocktail of anticipation and chaos only daytime television can create. The audience had packed in early, phones in hand, ready to capture charm and laughter. But what they got instead was a clash no one saw coming. Gal sat poised, posture perfect, smile effortless. She had come to promote her latest film, a humanitarian drama about resilience and peace. The irony of that title wouldn't be lost on anyone later. Joy Behar leaned back in her chair, flipping through her cue cards with that signature smirk that always hinted she was about to stir something. The conversation started harmlessly. Whoopi welcomed Gal warmly. Sunny Hostin praised her work for women in the military. Even Sarah Haynes complimented her grace and acting. Then came Joy. "So, Gal," she began, voice playful, but with an edge that could cut through glass. "You talk a lot about peace and empowerment. But don't you think, coming from someone who served in the Israeli military, that message sounds a little complicated?" The air changed instantly. A soft gasp rippled through the audience. Even a stagehand froze mid-step. Gal's smile faltered. Not gone, but strained. She tilted her head, eyes narrowing just slightly. "I believe peace is built from understanding," she replied calmly. "My service was never about aggression. It was about responsibility, about protecting others." Joy let out a low chuckle. "Sure. But to some people, it might look like preaching peace while holding a weapon. You know, that's a bit contradictory." A few audience members laughed nervously. Others shifted in their seats. Gal leaned forward, voice lower now, her quiet strength cutting through the tension. "Joy, with all due respect, you're simplifying something deeply personal. I don't talk about violence. I talk about compassion. And compassion sometimes means standing up for others." Joy shrugged, her smirk returning. "I'm just saying. Maybe acknowledge that not everyone sees your version of peace the same way." The word "your" landed like a slap. Gal's jaw tightened. "Peace isn't something that belongs to me," she said, voice firm. "It's something we all have to fight for. Sometimes, literally. You live in a country that's had to do that too." The studio went dead silent. Even Whoopi blinked, unsure whether to intervene. Joy laughed awkwardly, waving it off. "Oh, come on. I'm not saying America's perfect. But this isn't about me, Gal. You're the face of peace, the Wonder Woman of diplomacy. Surely you can take a little pushback." Uneasy laughter rippled through the crowd. Gal inhaled deeply, steady but sharp. "There's a difference between pushback and provocation," she said slowly. "And people forget that words can wound too." The camera cut to Joy, who leaned in again, eyes glinting, sensing the shift. "Well, I'm just saying, Gal. People who come on talk shows expect tough questions. You're not in Themyscira anymore," the audience murmured. Gal's eyes flashed, that same look fans had seen on the big screen. Fierce, but heartbreakingly human. She straightened, gaze fixed on Joy. "Tough questions are fine," she said. "But disrespect isn't," the crowd gasped. Joy tilted her head, feigning innocence. "Disrespect? Oh, come on. We just like a good debate here." "Debate?" Gal repeated softly. "That's not what this feels like." The silence that followed was suffocating. Whoopi finally stepped in, laughing lightly. Okay, ladies. Let's not turn this table into a battlefield." "Gal, tell us about your film." Gal forced a thin smile. It's a story about hope, she said quietly. About people who keep believing in humanity, even when it's tested. Joy chuckled, breaking the tension again. Well, I hope you're ready for the comment section after this one. The crowd laughed uncertainly. Gal exhaled slowly. Her eyes stayed locked on Joy's. And for a moment, the studio lights, the noise, the cameras, all of it disappeared. You know, Joy, she said softly, voice like steel wrapped in silk. It's easy to joke when you've never had to fight for peace, but some of us don't have that luxury. The audience froze, a few gasps. Then, silence. Even Joy blinked, caught off guard. Gal leaned back, composure restored, her expression calm but unyielding, and in that moment, the energy in the room shifted. From entertainment to confrontation. No one spoke for 3 full seconds. Then, slowly, applause began. Tentative at first, then growing, swelling into something raw and electric. Joy forced a smile. Gal held hers, steady, unbroken. The red light flashed. Cameras cut. But everyone in that studio, and everyone watching at home, knew something real had just happened. Something raw, unscripted, and unforgettable. And this time, it wasn't over when the cameras stopped rolling. The cameras cut to commercial, but the tension didn't. Crew members glanced nervously between Gal and Joy, who sat frozen at opposite ends of the table. The audience murmured quietly, some clapping in awkward support, others avoiding eye contact altogether. Everyone could feel it. The friction, the raw crack beneath the glossy polish of morning television. Gal sat perfectly still, her hands clasped in her lap, her face serene. But beneath that calm exterior, her pulse was pounding. She wasn't used to this, to being cornered, not as an actress or an activist, but as a person carrying the weight of her history. Across from her, Joy fiddled with her cue cards, pretending to read, though her eyes kept darting toward Gal like a chess player plotting the next move. The director's voice broke the silence. Coming back in 5, 4, 3, Joy's smirk returned like armor. And we're back, Whoopi announced, her voice brighter than before, trying to wash away the tension. We're joined by the incredible Gal Gadot, whose new film, Heart of the Earth, opens this Friday. Polite applause filled the studio. Gal smiled, back in professional mode. But beneath the smile, the storm still brewed. Sonny Hostin leaned forward carefully. Gal, before the break, you were talking about how your film's message centers on hope and unity, something we could all use right now. Gal nodded smoothly. Absolutely. The story reminds us that unity doesn't mean agreeing on everything. It means choosing to understand, even when it's difficult. It was a graceful recovery, a masterclass in composure. The audience relaxed, the tension softening, but Joy wasn't done. So, Gal, she began sweetly, her tone dripping with polite venom, you talk about unity and understanding, but do you think that applies to everyone? Even those who disagree with your political views? The air went still. Whoopi's eyes darted toward Joy, silently warning her to tread carefully. Gal blinked once. Everyone, she said firmly. Even people who disagree. That's the only way peace works. Joy gave a light, condescending laugh. That's a nice answer, but kind of vague, isn't it? You've been outspoken about world issues. Some would say that makes you part of the problem. A collective gasp swept through the audience. Gal didn't flinch, not outwardly, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of hurt. Part of the problem, she repeated softly. Joy shrugged, unbothered. Hey, I'm just saying what people are thinking. When you're a public figure, you've got to expect scrutiny. There it was, that signature Behar bravado. The line between interviewer and instigator blurred completely. Gal leaned forward slowly, folding her hands. Her accent sharpened each word. Scrutiny is fine, she said. But there's a difference between asking questions and making accusations. Joy smiled tightly. You're reading too much into it, sweetheart. Don't be so sensitive. The word hit like a slap. The studio froze. The audience shifted uneasily. Even Sunny frowned in disapproval. Gal's jaw tightened. When she finally spoke, her voice was low, steady, and unflinchingly direct. Don't call me that. Joy blinked, caught off guard. Excuse me? Gal's tone never rose. Don't call me sweetheart. I'm not your sweetheart. The tension shattered like glass. The crowd gasped audibly. Even Whoopi looked stunned. Gal leaned back, eyes steady. I've been called many things, Joy. But that one, it feels dismissive. You wanted honesty? That's it. Joy gave a nervous laugh that didn't quite reach her eyes. Okay, relax. It's just an expression. Not to me, Gal replied. Words matter, especially from people who make a living using them. Whoopi jumped in quickly, hands raised. All right, ladies, let's keep it cool. We're not trying to start World War II here. The audience chuckled lightly. A fragile relief, but the tension still hummed beneath the laughter, like static in the air. Gal took a slow breath, gathering herself. When she smiled again, it wasn't for joy or the cameras. It was for control. I'm here to talk about something meaningful, she said. Not to play verbal ping-pong over what I believe. Fair enough, Joy said, leaning back with a forced grin. You're good at staying on message. Must be that Wonder Woman training. Gal didn't laugh. She just looked at her, that piercing, unshakable stare that could silence a room. You know, Joy, she said softly, people sometimes mistake kindness for weakness. I don't raise my voice because I don't have to. The audience erupted in applause. Even Whoopi grinned, shaking her head. Now that's a headline, she said. Joy laughed along, but her face was tight, her eyes flashing. Oh, don't get all philosophical on me, Gal. It's just daytime TV. Gal's reply came quiet, but razor sharp. Maybe that's the problem. The studio went silent again. Cameras captured every flicker of emotion. Gal's calm defiance, Joy's forced smile. The crowd's fascination with what they knew was becoming a viral moment in real time. Sunny leaned in gently, trying to bring the conversation back. Gal, I actually love what you just said, that even daytime TV can hold real meaning. Gal smiled at her gratefully. Exactly. People underestimate how powerful these conversations can be. The tension finally eased, but the damage was done. The spark had already caught. When the next commercial break hit, the studio buzzed like a live wire. Producers whispered urgently near the stage. Whoopi rubbed her temples. Sunny leaned toward Joy, muttering something under her breath. Gal stood up quietly, smoothing her blouse. She wasn't angry anymore, just done. Joy looked up from her cue cards, maybe realizing she had crossed a line. Instead of apologizing, she forced a brittle smile. No hard feelings, right? She asked. Gal paused. For a moment, she said nothing. Then she met Joy's gaze with a calm that could freeze fire. No, Gal said softly, her voice calm but final. Just lessons learned. Without another glance, she rose from her seat and walked off set, her heels clicking sharply against the stage floor. The audience murmured, phones instantly raised, eyes wide with the thrill of witnessing live drama unfold. Joy Behar sat frozen, suddenly aware that the cameras were still rolling. That silence now weighed heavier than any line she could offer. After a beat, she forced out a laugh. Well, she muttered, that was intense. Whoopi Goldberg sighed, turning toward her. You think? The screen faded to black for a commercial break. But the real conversation, both inside the studio and across the internet, was just beginning. When the broadcast returned, Gal's seat was empty. Her coffee mug sat untouched, the faint lipstick mark on its rim the only trace she'd been there. The audience whispered, exchanging glances between the vacant chair and the panel of hosts, who now seemed uncharacteristically stiff. Whoopi adjusted her glasses and smiled for the camera. "Well, live TV, folks. You never know what's going to happen." Gal had to step away for a bit. "But we'll keep the show going." A smattering of awkward applause followed. Joy Behar tried to mirror Whoopi's composure, but her expression faltered. She leaned towards Sonny Hostin and whispered, "Did she really just walk off?" Sonny nodded slightly. "She's upset, Joy. What did you expect?" Joy scoffed under her breath. "Oh, come on. I didn't say anything that bad. You'd think she's never been challenged before." Whoopi shot her a sharp look. "Joy, maybe it wasn't what you said. Maybe it was how you said it." The words hung heavy in the air, sharper than any cue card line could be. Backstage, Gal stood before a mirror in the dressing room, her reflection glowing beneath the harsh lights. Her assistant hovered behind her in silence. Gal's fingers trembled slightly as she removed her microphone. "They think it's entertainment," she murmured. "They think disrespect is part of the show." Her assistant hesitated, trying to respond, but Gal lifted a hand, not to silence her, but to steady herself. Her eyes stayed fixed on her reflection. "You know, I've faced tougher moments in my life, but somehow this feels worse. Maybe because it wasn't about hate. It was about being dismissed. That's what hurts, being dismissed." A stagehand appeared in the doorway, tentative. "Miss Gadot, they're asking if you'd like to return for the next segment." Gal turned toward him, her expression calm but unreadable. "No," she said quietly. "They've said enough. And so have I." Back on stage, Whoopi tried to ease the tension with humor. "So, Sarah, you ever had a guest walk off before?" Sarah Haynes gave a nervous smile. "Not one that graceful." The audience laughed, but uneasily. Phones buzzed in pockets and control rooms alike. Social media was already lighting up. Clips of Gal's final words, "Kindness isn't weakness," were being replayed, captioned, and shared at lightning speed. Joy glanced toward the crowd and saw phones still recording. She leaned closer to her mic. "Okay, let's be honest. I asked a tough question. Maybe too tough. But hey, that's the view. We challenge people. If she can't handle that, maybe don't." Whoopi cut in sharply, voice low and commanding. "Don't finish that sentence," Joy blinked. "What?" "I'm just saying." "No," Whoopi interrupted. "You're poking the bear after it's already left the room." The audience gasped. Some clapped. Others fell silent. Joy leaned back, rolling her eyes. "Oh, for heaven's sake! Everyone's so sensitive these days." Sonny spoke up, exhaling hard. "It's not about sensitivity, Joy. It's about tone. You crossed a line, and everyone here felt it." Joy opened her mouth, ready to fire back, but then she noticed the looks from her co-hosts. Even Sarah, normally neutral, wouldn't meet her gaze. For the first time that morning, Joy's confidence flickered. "Okay," she muttered finally. "Maybe I pushed too hard. I didn't mean for her to take it personally." Whoopi shook her head. "You don't always get to decide how someone takes it." The crowd applauded softly. A quiet, supportive echo that fell firmly on Whoopi's side. As the show limped through its final minutes, the tension never lifted. It hardened instead, into silence, into side glances, into something that would linger long after the cameras stopped. When the closing theme played, Joy stood quickly, mumbling something to Sonny before heading backstage. Whoopi walked off in the opposite direction, her expression unreadable. Outside the studio, the storm was already brewing. By the time Gal reached her car, her phone was buzzing non-stop. Notifications poured in, headlines, mentions, clips flooding TikTok, X, formerly Twitter, and Instagram. Gal Gadot on The View trended within minutes. Fans defended her fiercely. Gal handled that with pure class. Others sided with Joy. It's The View. She should have known what she was walking into. Gal sat in the back seat, scrolling through the chaos. Headlines multiplied. Gal Gadot walks off. The View after heated exchange with Joy Behar. Don't call me sweetheart. Chaditir paridu. Gadot fires back, live on air. When Wonder Woman met the View's firebrand. Her driver glanced back through the mirror. Home, Miss Gadot? She nodded, eyes still on her phone. Yes, but drive slow. As the car rolled through Manhattan, Gal rested her head against the window, watching the city blur into motion. She thought about the irony, coming to promote a film about unity, leaving in the middle of a confrontation that divided millions of viewers. Her assistant's voice came softly from the front seat. You were amazing in there, Gal. You didn't lose your cool. Everyone saw your grace. Gal smiled faintly. Grace doesn't always win in clips. Outrage does. Meanwhile, Joy sat alone in the green room, scrolling through her own mentions. Her name was trending too, but not the way she hoped. Clips of her smirk, her sweetheart comment, and Gal's exit looped endlessly online. Captions read, Disrespect on live TV. Joy Behar goes too far. Joy tossed her phone onto the couch, muttering, Oh, please. Everyone's a saint online now. But as the noise of the studio faded and she sat alone, something unfamiliar crept in. Not guilt exactly, but awareness. Maybe she had crossed a line. Maybe this time it wouldn't just blow over. Moments later, the studio manager stepped in. ABC wants to review the segment before posting. They're concerned, Joy sighed, rubbing her temples. Of course they are. And as the door closed, silence filled the space where laughter used to live. The kind of silence that says the story isn't over yet. The manager hesitated, unsure how to proceed. Should we reach out to Gal's team? He asked. Joy looked up, her tone sharp. To apologize or to clarify? He added carefully. She didn't respond. Outside, the New York afternoon blazed with life. Honking horns, chatter, the endless rhythm of the city. But inside that quiet green room, for the first time in years, Joy Behar fell silent. She leaned back, eyes closed, and, for a brief moment, the trademark laughter and confidence that defined her career seemed to fade away. Because, for once, she wasn't sure she'd won. The fallout was immediate, faster than anyone on The View's production team could have imagined. By the next morning, the clash between Gal Gadot and Joy Behar had become the most talked-about segment in daytime television history. Clips of the confrontation flooded every platform. TikToks set to dramatic music, Twitter threads dissecting every micro-expression, and YouTube analysts breaking down the power dynamic frame by frame. Hashtags dominated social media. Just Gal versus Joy. Don't call me sweetheart. The meltdown. Headlines screamed across entertainment sites. Gal Gadot stuns The View hosts. Walks out mid-segment. Joy Behar accused of disrespect after Gadot clash. Wonder Woman goes to war on The View. The internet had chosen sides. One particular clip went viral. The moment, Gal leaned forward and said, Don't call me sweetheart. I'm not your sweetheart. It looped endlessly online, labeled The Line That Silenced Joy Behar. Comment sections turned into battlegrounds. Some praised Gal's composure and boundaries. She handled that with grace. That's how you shut down condescension. Gal didn't lose her cool. She reclaimed her respect. Others defended Joy. Joy was just being Joy. People are too sensitive these days. It's a talk show, not a therapy session. Grow thicker skin. But one truth remained. Everyone was watching. By noon, talk show analysts, late-night hosts, and entertainment blogs had replayed the footage 100 times. Memes spread like wildfire. Reaction videos dominated YouTube. And for the first time in years, The View's ratings skyrocketed. For all the wrong reasons. Inside ABC's Manhattan offices, executives scrambled to control the narrative. Emergency calls, internal debates, whispers of damage control. The confrontation had brought in viewers, but exposed something deeper, an uncomfortable tension within the show's culture. Meanwhile, Gal Gadot remained silent. Her publicist released a short statement. Gal believes in meaningful conversation, not confrontation. She stands by her message of respect and empathy, even in moments of disagreement. That calm response only deepened her mystique. In a world obsessed with outrage, her silence spoke louder than words. But behind the scenes, Gal wasn't quite as composed as the statement suggested. In her Los Angeles home, she sat on the edge of her sofa, scrolling through the endless flood of reactions. Her phone buzzed with messages, friends offering support, colleagues urging her to stay quiet. Her husband entered quietly. "You're still reading it?" Gal nodded. "It's everywhere. I didn't even think it was that big of a deal, but the way people are twisting it." He sat beside her, gently taking her phone. "You don't owe anyone an explanation. You said what you felt. That's all." Gal smiled faintly, resting her head on his shoulder. "Maybe, but it's strange. I've done action movies, stunts, explosions, and somehow this felt scarier. Just words, just a table." He smiled softly. "Sometimes words hit harder than anything else." Across the country, Joy Behar wasn't handling things as gracefully. In her dressing room, she scrolled through the tidal wave of criticism. Social media wasn't kind. Hashtags demanded apologies. Think pieces accused her of bullying. Old clips resurfaced, painting a picture of a host who had gone too far too often. Joy slammed her phone onto the counter. "Oh, give me a break," she muttered. "One bad moment and suddenly I'm the villain of daytime TV." From the doorway, Whoopi Goldberg's voice cut through the tension. "It wasn't just a bad moment, Joy." Joy looked up, startled. "You're buying into this too?" Whoopi crossed her arms. "I'm not buying anything. I was there. You didn't just ask questions. You pushed until it wasn't a conversation anymore." Joy sighed, rubbing her temples. "That's my job, Whoopi. I challenge people." Whoopi stepped closer. "There's a difference between challenging and cornering. You're one of the best in this business, Joy. But sometimes you forget when to stop." For the first time in days, Joy had no comeback. She just stared down at her coffee, the weight of it all pressing down on her. The next morning, the view began differently. The camera cut to Joy sitting alone at the table, her voice softer than usual. "Before we start today," she began, "I want to address something from yesterday's show. I had a tense exchange with Gal Gadot, and I may have crossed a line. I've built my career on being outspoken, but that doesn't mean I can't recognize when I've gone too far. So, Gal, if you're watching, I'm sorry. You didn't deserve that tone. You deserved respect." The audience applauded, slow but sincere. Whoopi nodded approvingly. Sunny gently placed a hand on Joy's arm. Sarah smiled. It wasn't rehearsed. It wasn't perfect. But it was real. For the first time in a long time, Joy Behar looked human. Across the ocean, Gal watched the clip while preparing for an interview in London. She replayed it once, then again, her face unreadable. After a quiet pause, she smiled, a small, knowing smile, and whispered, "Good." Later that day, she broke her silence on Instagram. A simple photo of a sunrise, captioned, "Peace takes courage, even when it's uncomfortable." Within hours, the post had millions of likes. Comments flooded in. "Queen energy. A masterclass in grace. That's how you rise above." Within a week, the storm faded. Headlines moved on to new scandals. But that episode of The View would be remembered, replayed, analyzed, discussed as the day Gal Gadot drew a line and stood her ground. Months later, during a magazine interview, a journalist asked if she regretted walking off. Gal smiled thoughtfully. "No," she said. "Sometimes silence speaks louder than argument. And sometimes walking away isn't weakness, it's clarity." The interviewer smiled. And joy? Gal's expression softened. I think we both learned something that day. And just like that, she closed the chapter. The cameras may have captured the confrontation, but the world saw something deeper. A clash of pride and principle, ego and empathy. And in the end, neither woman walked away unscathed, but both walked away changed.